it's awkward for my Chat State students too, to come in and still not been at Southern, right? So it's balancing that, and then it's just,
Which I think illustrates the complexities of faith anyway, because, you know, we can read the scriptures that talk about in Isaiah, the poor you will have with you always. You know, the book of James has so many beautiful passages about love, hospitality, you know, all these things. And then we can open up the Old Testament and meet people with it, okay? So that is the challenge with using faith, right? And if you are in another religion, Judaism, Islam, there's the same thing, right? There's the really encouraging, beautiful things, and then there's that. So I think that's the challenge, and I'm really glad you have that opportunity to challenge them. Hey, I'm going to pick on you because you have students certainly who are Jewish, right?
Oh, yeah.
Many.
All.
Yes.
So far.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
So far. Yeah, I'm Jewish, and I work at a Jewish agency, and we actually serve people of all faiths. So we are what we call a cultural center, so we're not a synagogue. And I think that many of all of my students really have no kind of understanding of our faith or how that plays in. So that's one of the first things that I sit down and talk to them about, and how we can, we serve people of all faiths, and that it's not a religious, and if they have those kinds of questions, then I, take them to, suggest they go to talk to a rabbi or somebody else. But, I think that it's important to understand kind of the ethics around our faith that, tells us to take care of others and to
Absolutely.
live honestly and, the basic.
And our profession is very deeply rooted in an idea of faith, right? And that we should serve each other, and that we're responsible to each other. I mean, that's kind of that social contract, right? So you do have to have a little bit of understanding about how that looks the same and different across different things.
And I talk to my students about that quite a bit, just there's more similarities than there are differences. But you never, even with clients, I have people come in, there are a lot of people who come in who want to tell me they're Jewish, who want to tell me that they have a mother's brother's cousin's uncle who was Jewish, and I even had a gentleman who wanted to show me his circumcision, which was push the button to my, I was like, I went and got my boss. I was like, okay, that is not appropriate. Do not pull your pants down. I'm like, we serve people of all faiths. I do not. Really, that was like, I'm writing a book. I don't make this shit up, but no, really. That was like, I was so dumbfounded. And I tell people we serve people of all faiths. I'm like,
You don't need to prove it, right?
Yeah, he did. He felt he did. I said, that's a rabbi thing. But that really, and if I had a student in my office then, that would have been.
Yeah, really a learning moment. Yes.
But I do tell my students about that, because you don't know coming in and what their expectations are. I had a guy who was trying to sell insurance, Medicare insurance. He told me God sent it to me to sell Medicare insurance, and I was like, really? I didn't know God was selling Advantage plans to, that kind of stuff. I think people sometimes use faith in order to
Advance their personal causes.
Yes.
How many of you all have been to a religious service different than the one that you either practiced or grew up in? How many of you guys? Wonderful. Keep doing it. I encourage you all. That is one of the best ways to expose yourself to the similarities and the differences in all the faith traditions that we have. And Chattanooga actually has a pretty wide diversity of faith, more than people think. But it's worth taking the time and the effort to do that, because you never know when you will have someone who walks into your office, and you're so grateful that you have that experience that sensitized you to what they were really needing or asking for. So here's a question for reflection then. When has my perspective changed because I got to know someone personally who was part of a group that I knew primarily through a stereotype? Okay? i.e. race, nationality, spiritual tradition, sexual orientation, etc. And what effect did this have on my sense of who I am as a person and how I relate to others? Good question. All of us have had those moments where the scales fell off our eyes, as they say, and you saw that person as actually like you, as a person. And that sounds really simplistic, but we've all had that experience, and it was an aha moment that helped us cross over and be more open. So anybody here want to share a moment they had like that? It can be with, I mean, seriously, anything. A poor person, a gay person, non-religious person, old person, young person.
I think that my experience with addicts of the substance using population has been very eye-opening. You know, everyone has reasons, you know, we all cope in different ways, and I think that's definitely enhanced my ability to empathize and understand, and therefore, you know, accept and meet clients where they are, and then which brings me a lot of way to help, to help the lives of one another.
That makes sense. I mean, I think we as social workers are getting further and further apart from a lot of the clients we work with, the groups and communities that we do, which is again reasons why we have to be really intentional sometimes about engaging in experiences and opening ourselves to these opportunities to learn. Anyone else want to share an experience? Yes.
In school, I had a good friend from Pakistan, and I went to UGA for my undergrad, and my friend was from Marietta, and she talked like me, she just didn't look like me. But so we had a lot of similarities. Then I went home with her for one weekend, and her mom spoke Urdu, and they made this traditional Pakistani meal, and it was just this whole like, you're me this day, and then the next day you fit in this whole other culture, and she'll be in an arranged marriage, and she went back home for her mom or her sister's arranged marriage, and so it was a whole new world. But it was really cool that she still had that. It also helped me understand that, like, for people from the Middle East that are American, they have a lot of struggle too in understanding, like, she's so much like the typical 20-something-year-old girl that's American, but yet she has a lot more to face than I do.
Right, and that being bicultural is really tricky. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a wonderful experience. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a moment where they saw something or learned something? Oh, come on, you all. What was it? Which one should I share?
I think I work for hospice, and I've been there 11 years, but every day I'm still surprised at meeting someone face to face, and I feel so honored to be there. Like you were saying, those who have substance abuse issues, any person that is at the end of life, they all have the same needs. And that's been very humbling to me, because I had prejudice. Years ago, I worked for Fort Wood in the crisis response team, and I worked third shifts as a second job. And I would get so irritated with those who had alcohol or drug problems, and I'd be called out from my home at 3 in the morning for someone who showed up in the emergency room because they were having trouble, and I didn't even want to hear their story. But at the end of life, hearing those who had trouble with alcohol and drugs, they have the same needs, and it just has brought me kind of around to think, what were they like what was life like when they were born into this world? Who were they as a baby? What was life like for them? And now they're leaving this world, and everyone has the same needs. But every day I find it, or every week, a new prejudice I have, and I get this aha. Oh, mama.
I mean, all of us carry many, right? But it is that simple idea that we are more alike than we think we are, right? The other thing I would tell you all to think about is that there's an interesting theory called standpoint theory, which is kind of an alternative way of thinking about human development. A lot of the more traditional linear theories are stage-based. For example, Erickson's model, which says you've got to do this to get to this, to do that, and if you don't, you've got issues, and blah, blah, blah. Which doesn't mean that there isn't good things in it, but there are alternative ways, too, of thinking how people develop and grow and change over their life. Standpoint theory is a little bit complicated, but the basic idea of it is that where we are standing today, and when we stand, just really literally think of yourself standing somewhere and looking behind you, forward, and to the side, and understanding your story, really, of where you've come from, the social, the historical context of it, and what lies ahead of you, that you can have a much better understanding of where somebody is. And I think we overlook sometimes the historical and the social context of people's experiences. Yesterday, I do supervision with a group of LCSWs, and I met with one yesterday who had a 93-year-old client who was really struggling with coming to terms with his life, choices that he made a long time ago. He was African American, had never gone to college, was barely literate, and she and him had a wonderful relationship, very positive relationship, and she was struggling with how can I help him be at peace about his life. So we ended up having a very long conversation about the historical context of his life and his experience, and how he grew up in Detroit. He worked at Ford. He started down on floor sweeping, worked his way up to being a manager. He had like a third-grade education. He was a very, very resilient person. He had done all these things. Yes, he made some choices that were questionable, probably, as we all do. But when we started to talk about it in the historical context, it changed the way that she was looking at his struggles. And she was able to really think, oh, that makes sense, you know. As an African-American man who's 93, think of all the history this person has seen and the things that he has experienced, both positive and negative, and how that affects his standpoint where he is now. The fact that he said to her, I didn't think I'd live to be 93, that's old. And then I am old. So just that alone is a lot to unpack in terms of understanding where you are. So I encourage you all to think about that standpoint perspective. How, and with students, how can I look at where they are and understand the social and historical context of where they're coming from? So the social work code of ethics, which hopefully you all are sort of familiar with at this point in your life as a social worker, has, you know, the things that were the main guiding principles, that core values that we're familiar with: service, social justice, dignity, worth of person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. And I think sometimes we gloss over these and we don't think they're connected, like you can have the one without the other, but of course, I would posit you must have them all. Which ones? Let me back up for a second. Social work as a profession is organized around a utilitarian perspective. Y'all know what a utilitarian perspective is? Yes? No? Shall I explain? Yes. Utilitarianism is a philosophy that basically says everyone deserves to be happy. Okay, that's a very simplistic explanation of it. However, what your level of happiness is not up to you. It's up to the system to decide. Okay? So when I talk to my students about this, we talk about an example of bread. All right? Everybody gets a slice of bread under utilitarianism. Sharon gets a Needloff's piece of bread. It's a fine piece of bread with cinnamon and raisins and frosting on it. Robin gets a piece of moldy green bread. Lisa gets a bread crust, okay? They're all different, right? But what is the common principle about those three examples? They got something, right? So really, when you get something, you should not complain, okay? The something helps what? Maintain social order, it helps us be happy, it helps us know our role in society, et cetera, et cetera. Now we know as social workers that isn't necessarily random, right? If you got the good piece, yours was yours was bad, whatever. That's not necessarily random. That is a result of the systems that we work in. What isn't in utilitarianism is the principle of social justice, all right? And that's always been a huge conflict in our profession, which is why, for some of you, this makes sense now when you think about it. If everyone gets a piece of bread, that's not justice. What is that? Instead of justice, that is fairness. Y'all understand the difference? Okay? So fairness is somebody gets everything, something. Justice is it's equal or it's equivalent, all right? So in our profession, we have struggled with social justice, and for lots of reasons, but I would argue mostly from the reason that we're organized as a profession. That it is one of our guiding values, but it's hard to insert it into a system of fairness. Is everyone completely confused now? No? Do y'all understand? Yeah. I mean, does that make sense when you think about it? So how do we then, as social workers, really embrace the value of social justice? If we're really more about fairness. What do y'all think? Just think it's on ahead. I'll pick on you. It's a challenge. It's a struggle. It is. It's why very few social workers practice at the macro level. I mean, there's percentages of our people that do, but most are doing direct practice, right? Because it is a system based on fairness. So we fight every day really for fairness, not for justice. Is that, yes? I'll pick on you, because you're a macro person. Yes, you agree? Yeah, so why are there so few people besides that do macro policy stuff?
It's hard.
It is hard, yeah.
You know, just doing some of the stuff over on the west side. I mean, I have a headache, and things change so fast in the community.
Daily, hourly.
Yeah. And, you know, how do you, well, I mean, even what's happening in city government today, I mean, fair housing, food deserts, and stuff like that. And,
I mean,
if
affordable
it doesn't
housing.
affect you,
Right.
then,
Right.
you know, who cares?
And affordable housing is a good example of utilitarianism, actually, because it basically guarantees everyone a place to live, right? But yours might be a good roof that doesn't leak, right? You can lock your door. Yours might be, well, the roof leaks when it rains really, really hard. The back door, can't find the key for it, so you're gonna have to make do with that. But you have a place to live, right? That's not justice, that's fairness, right? So if we want to argue that yours should be as equivalent as hers, that's a totally different perspective, right? Than to say that you have something, which is what you were saying, why it's so complicated and so difficult. Because those are policy changes that have to happen within a system that is organized in a really different way. So should social workers fight for social justice or fairness? What do you guys think? We should. Fairness would be easier.
I think we should, but I don't think we do because of that eagerness. Because it's really hard to feel that social exchange. So in clinical practice, you give a little bit, and a lot of times you see in the moment an aha moment, and you see something happening, and it feels really good. If you're in the macro level, it's years, and it's a long fight, and you may never get that reward in return.
But it could affect more people,
Yeah.
right? That's the other argument, the other side of that argument.
But aren't we obligated to be involved politically and make changes? I mean, that's part of-
Theoretically. I mean, I
Here we
think
are.
we're all taught that, right? Maybe. I do.
I hope so.
Yeah, I would say most of us. But it's really hard. It's easier to do the direct kind of encounter with people and feel like you are making a difference. Because all of us went into this to make a difference, right? Yes. Some of us, when we were little, we knew we would be social work. Other people found their path in a different way, right? Yeah. So it does become really difficult. The reason I said all this is around the value of social justice. You know, I think we as a profession can do a lot of analyzing about it and asking ourselves, why are we still in a system that's very unjust, that's very unequal, that's very racist and classist and sexist and all those things? There are reasons for that, and one of the reasons is the way that we as a society function. And justice is not really a part of that. Fairness is more part of that than justice. The importance of human relationships is also another one I think that is really challenging. And this one is linked to the competency number 4, okay? When we talk about diversity and difference, this value, I would argue, is very much connected to that competency. And that is one that students and field instructors really struggle with. Diversity and difference is something I think all of us are open to, but when we have to look at how it's applied, how we help people navigate what that looks like, it can be very, very challenging. And competence is the other one. Competence really is all the competencies, I would say, but competence goes back to our earlier discussion in terms of how do we hold ourselves accountable, how do we help students be accountable. You know, when we have colleagues doing unethical things or being unprofessional, that's really challenging. And I think all of us probably know at least one person who has been practicing as a social worker and really probably needed some supervision or something. Yes? Yes. So how do we deal with those situations? And what is our duty as a profession when we see somebody, Tammy, who is exchanging phone numbers with clients that are coming to see her for counseling? We know this, okay? What do we do about that? This is what happens.
I think we have an obligation first to go and talk to the person. And then we go, all right, sorry.
Well, she just wants to be available because these are folks that are really struggling with things. They're in an intense, stressful situation. She wants to make sure she's available 24/7.
She needs to get over and still care sometimes. And it is that. It is. That's why we are cut on this. She would have heard our for that.
Hopefully, right, and said, what do you do with her?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be here, outside of your inside.
I mean, I agree with you. I think I would say most social workers that I know have good peers, like that would say, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm worried about you. You okay? You look really tired. I've noticed that you're kind of being a little slippery with personal information. What's going on? Right? So what if that person though doesn't receive that message? What's next? And she's in private practice. Yes, so what do? You file a complaint agreement again. And then the investigation starts. It's a long process. But there are not a lot of those that happen actually. They're a pretty small percentage considering all the practice that we do. What are the areas where social workers do get into trouble the most in terms of professional and ethical conduct? Y'all know? It's not having sex with clients. I mean, we can all sit here and think, I haven't had a lot of clients that I want to, do that, right? No, seriously. We'll go back to Amy's example.
He did not pull his pants down, just so you know, I stopped.
But seriously, that is, yes, social workers do that, but we are not the highest percentage that does it. What are some other areas where we have issues?
Confidentiality.
Confidentiality is one of them. The example I actually gave of the giving the phone number, personal information, that gets a little bit sketchy. Because again, we're earnest, so we really want to be available to you, Matt. I know you're really depressed right now. Do you have anyone you can call? Not really. Here's my number. You can call anytime. I'm here for you. We're going to get through this together. No. That sounds really creepy, actually.
I think another one is sometimes the setting always talking about.
Which is what John was like, confidentiality.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? It's relevant, I think, because it was a student who asked me this question, and it was related to kind of what happens when you see a colleague doing something they ought not to be doing.
Yeah.
But what if you've got a social worker who is your supervisor and not dealing with this person?
Oh, the horror of it, really? That's such a rare example. It's an outlier.
So she was really struggling with the idea that do you go to that individual, like the suggestion would be, and explain what's going on, and expose yourself to all sorts of different problems that can come of that, or what do you do? Do you go for change or whatever? So that was something that a student had wanted some guidance on.
Which shows a lot of insight on the student's part that they saw the difference between professional and professional behavior.
Absolutely. We had a whole LCSW discussion about it.
Yeah.
I'll share. I work for the Department of Children's Services, and a lot of the people that I supervise are at least my age or older. And so I call it cleaning up. I'm not perfect. If you see something I'm doing or whatever, let's talk about it. And we had a situation where we were advocating for this lady who was in a custody battle with her husband, ex-husband, and so she didn't know what she called somebody, they told her what to do, she did not understand it, so I was empowering her to call, this person back and say, hey, what do you need to do? So, well, that person was an attorney, and of course they didn't like the fact that I was helping this lady do all this stuff, but, my work was right there, and it was just like, okay, obviously this attorney was quite upset with me because I was interfering with a custody battle, but all I was trying to do was, this lady doesn't understand, what she needs to do, or what you're telling her. And so it was like, okay, Barbara, you've been here, you witnessed the thing, what can I have done here? And so, it's just kind of coaching up,
But I think you're open to that, whereas there are many people who
There's some folks you probably need to wouldn't know, and the students has a fair, concern about that, because if she's going to run into a situation where, as a professional, she is going to see her supervisor as doing something they shouldn't be doing, she doesn't want to put herself at great risk, and doesn't know how effective that's going to wind up being anyway. So it was more kind of just throw the idea out there, what about have you considered this? And it was a terrific opportunity for us as just the social workers in the department to be able to have that open discussion about, hey, you're we have the pros and cons, we got to think about what's best and where we really kind of work is about? You know, what is the outcome you really need to see? What's the way to do
And
it?
I go back to what Sharon was saying, I think about self-care, because boundary slippage usually happens when self-care is down, okay? Or when people are going through something personal that's really intense and it bleeds over into the professional setting. And I think that's a good place with students also to have those discussions about taking care of yourself, making sure you're in a good place so you make good decisions, so you don't find yourself in situations like that. But I think that leads to burnout. You know, all of us know people who are burned out in this profession, who are plugging away, they have to, they can't change jobs, whatever the reason is. How do you intervene then with somebody and reach out and be supportive at the same time say, I'm really concerned about you as a colleague? Any suggestions on that? That can be tricky. Just say it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to my colleagues, we do it all the time. We just have an environment where we can, I hope that we feel like we have an environment where we can talk about it. And we bring it out and we share with each other what we see. And I want to talk, like what you said, and just want to know, like, you said, what could I have done differently, you know? And with students, this is that time of the semester where so many of them are dealing with that whole feeling, all the overwhelmed feelings and stuff. Supervision is often about that right now with them.
It is.
And so, and actually, you know, staff and supervision with my staff, it's similar. We're always, that's a big topic.
It is.
You know, how are you managing? What are you doing to take care of yourself right now? You're struggling, is that affecting you, you know, and so, you know, just having that openness, creating an environment where people can talk.
And I think it goes back to being relational too, trying to have a relational experience with our colleagues. And it comes from going to things like this and knowing people and being able to reach out when needed. And sometimes I think we all need supervision. We do. We need somebody that we can call and say, I'm struggling. You have an hour to go to lunch and talk. How many of you in here who are experienced have somebody that you can do that with? Good. Awesome. If you don't, find somebody. You've got to have that person in your back pocket. That can help you navigate some of these things. Especially someone who knows you well, that can say, Justine, I've known you for 5 years, and today I'm really worried about you. There's something going on with you, so yes, let's talk. So, yes.
Real quick, I think the person that I've struggled with is the person who, no matter how much support is offered, they can never get enough.
Yeah.
And it's never enough to help them deal with where they're at, which means they've got other things they need to be looking at. But, you know, I've seen it in students, I've seen it in the past, but, you know, and it's just, that's a hard one.
It is hard, because you can't fix the personal stuff.
And I gotta set my boundaries with how far I'll go to support them.
And and all you can do is that. I think all you can do is that and consistently send the message. You know, you are supported here. We care about you. You've got to get some of this stuff. Get some help. Either get some professional help, or let's think about ways that you can do that. But you're right. I know a lot of people. Yeah, they struggle.
Sometimes it's just a card. Sometimes people don't need you to say anything, it's just a card.
Yep.
Or putting in a free, you go to lunch on me, I see
Well
you
said.
work, you're
Saying
working
thank you,
hard,
being
know.
appreciative.
Yeah,
Yes.
sometimes it just takes that, and sometimes a person, when they get it, it just changes the whole attitude.
Absolutely. Because I think a lot of us we never get told thank you, right? We just don't. So it is nice to hear that. Well said.
Two things I'm thinking. One is that I always, as I'm working with my staff and my students, one of the questions that I ask regularly is how can we help you do your job better? What are the tools you need in order to be successful? Because sometimes it can be something, yesterday my van driver came into my office and he saw a tape dispenser on my desk and he said, well, how come you have one and I don't? And I was like, because his office is somewhere, his space is out in the open and probably somebody borrowed it and took it to some other office. So I'm going to make sure that he has a tape dispenser. Obviously that was, so understanding that sometimes what people need might not even be that, but find out what they need in order to do their job well. The other thing that I tell my students a lot when they feel like they're in that is that making no decision is a decision.
Absolutely.
And it's to do nothing.
Yeah.
So if you stay there then your decision is that I'm okay with this.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's okay to take a day off and not do homework, not write that paper, not do, and come back and you'll have a different perspective. But that's again, even with us, as professionals, is sometimes you have to take that break and not beat yourself up because you're behind with your documentation, whatever it might be, right? Exactly. So let's move into talking briefly about burnout, and then we're going to do another activity. Words have power. These are some of my favorite words that I like. We talk a lot about